from don't make it out. I know that I'm blessed. There's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a check.
Colin Dart,
Hey.
Welcome to the show, brother.
Mr. Tolnay.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'll never forget when we first met because I remember thinking to myself, like, dude, this guy's a sharp dresser, man. I like your style right off the bat. And you just had this confidence to you, even though at the time that I met you, you were early in your career in real estate here in Denver.
Sure.
You just knew you were going to be successful. You just had that attitude and conviction and confidence that I think so many people in this industry lack. And I remember you had it, and it's been exciting to watch your career blossom and grow. And now a top producer in the real estate industry here in Denver. I know you own some long and short-term rental property, building an investment portfolio.
Yes, my best.
You're big on travel. You're big on dressing well, and you're now married,
I'm married.
right? So
5+ years.
So welcome to the show, dude. Just for those that don't know who you are, tell everybody who Colin Dart is and how you made your way into this podcast.
Well, I've known Darik for some time now. Had the opportunity to work with him over the years. He's always crushed it on the loan end of things and just general client care and taking care of his agents as well. Crossed paths recently on a deal, but you were representing buy side as always. I was representing the listing, and we got back on path and connected here. So on my end, I mean, real estate's been part of my life. Really, it's when I started, I didn't want it to define who I was. It absolutely defines who I am now. It is what it is. You know, if you're not working 7 days a week, I think that you're missing out. And it doesn't need to be, intrinsically your soul. Like I don't live to sell homes, but I do live to take care of people. And I do love to be the resource, the person that they call for all sorts of things. I get calls about what paint people should be using on their walls. I get calls about how people should structure their HELOC so that they can start stacking properties in a portfolio. I get calls about endless amounts of important or sometimes less impactful things. So been selling for 8 years. It's been a privilege. It's been ups and downs without question. Thank you for the nice observation on confidence early on. I really had no other option. There was only one option, that was to make it. And it took a while. The way I built was not unique by any stretch, but I certainly started with one avenue, which was more volume and lead-based focused business. And then I went more towards high reputation and sphere referral business, which took even longer.
When you look back on it, like, because you started with a team essentially, right? And now have transitioned into an individual agent.
Yes.
But if you were to do it over again, do you still feel like that was the best path forward, or is the best path forward for most people?
Definitely. I happened to start on my own with a mentor, which was helpful, and he got me kind of moving a little quicker and understanding some things. Then I joined a team that was well versed and had been doing it for, really, when you look at their experience, they've been doing this for 5 decades. And that was one of the best decisions I made. Now, if you gain some, you lose some, financially.
What about the people that say, well, yeah, but you're giving up all your commission in the split?
Sure. How are you going to learn how to do business? I mean, you're paying to learn from people who have been doing it for a long time, who have been doing it well. You don't want to be on a team with people you don't look up to or people that you don't respect. So I had the opportunity. I mean, I'll shout them out. The Knoll team, Justin and Piper Knoll. Piper's amazing. And Piper was kind enough to let me come along and work with her for, a couple of years. And it was amazing experience. I mean, I probably gained the experience a normal agent would take 5-6 years in 2. And that's worth it. I'd do it over again in a second.
For any new agents that are listening to this and they're thinking about getting into real estate and maybe they have some options on teams to interview, how do you know whether or not you're joining a great team and it's worthy of giving up that commission to learn versus a team that's in place? Maybe it looks good, but any practical questions somebody might be able to ask to find out if it's a team they should seriously consider joining or not?
Yeah, I mean, I would think the first step would be to evaluate your value system and your beliefs and where you want to be in real estate, because there's, as diverse as real estate is with how people do business, the same thing goes with teams. I would imagine one important question would be turnover and how big of a team it is. And I think there's something for everyone, but it's really hard to say because there's teams that I highly respect that are out there that are big, high producing teams that I would not work with personally, because I can see the way they do business. And I don't think that it's putting you in a position to, when you do have that exit, to be able to transition to your own business. It's you rely on that.
I want to just touch on something right there, guys. If you didn't hear what he just said, it's absolute gold. I think too often, I don't care if it's real estate, lending, any business, it's easy to get distracted or impressed by what that business can give you or what I'm going to get in return from the team that I'm going to join. But being able to really sit down with yourself and ask yourself what you actually want, I think changes the game. But I think that voice inside of us has been suppressed over the last decade, 15 years, where people aren't really speaking up as much as they used to. They're not listening to themselves. They're not asking themselves what it is they truly want. And so I think that's just a great observation and a great way to start that process, is making sure you're getting clear on what your values are and really where you want to take your business.
A wise observation. I mean, if you're doing it for a paycheck, real estate can be endless journey of great ups and downs and huge financial wins. But if you start by looking for the money, you're probably not doing yourself a great service, because you're not going to be able to transition, and you're not going to be able to do it on your own. Like, there's teams that'll feed you leads all day long and you can sit there and turn and burn, but there's rare agents that can handle that. It's volume. Volume's tough.
So what were some of the big lessons you learned working with Piper? And I would agree, she's fantastic. I know Justin as well. But what are some things that you learned that you felt maybe it wouldn't have been the same lesson if you had been with a different team?
I think there was a level of professionalism and accountability that was pretty significant. Part of that comes from just the influence that team has and the accountability they have to a larger group of people. There's a lot of leadership on that team. And so not only are they accountable to the general public, but also our internal realtor organization. And so that level of professionalism translated really well to the way I wanted to do things, which is you do things the right way, no matter who's looking. You say the right thing, the thing that you don't mind whoever hears it. Doesn't matter if you're saying it on a private phone call. Doesn't matter if you're saying it behind closed doors. You want to be leading with kindness, leading with excellence the best you can, and professionalism. And there was a lot of that going on. And so frankly, I was held to a pretty high standard, and there were some tough lessons learned along the way, because let's be realistic, our industry is not known for high standards. And I would say there's, for every one team like that, there's probably 10 out there that are doing okay.
A lot of people listening to this, though, they might hear that and say, well, yeah, but you're a real estate agent, right? Like, how could everybody be that different? I know that you and I think differently on that, but what would you say to the person that thinks all realtors are the same?
Well, that's a great question. Our industry is as diverse as the people that operate in it. There are minimal thresholds for entry. There are very low professional standards for keeping a license. And so you can imagine that you have everything from a very highly untrained and perhaps unethical type operator, all the way up to what you would call, and there really is no king or leader of our industry, right? There's thousands of them. So to that question, like, are all realtors the same? Well, I don't think anybody that's bought a house would be asking that question. I think those are questions from people that have never dealt with realtors before, because if you've worked with a realtor, did a good job, they're not all the same. conversely, if you worked with a realtor that didn't do so good of a job, you know that there's an option on the other side of the coin.
Where do you think that comes from? And it's the same way, by the way, with lending, right? Where it's like our industry is attempted to become commoditized, where, it's like it's just rate, right? Even with the NAR settlement, it's like, okay, but what's the agent really doing? Why should why should they have to pay this fee that's sort of agreed upon by this body, right? That says it's 3.2% on a listing or
Sure.
2.8% to a buyer's agent. I just wonder where that sort of started and why it continues to run rampant in our industry, where people think, and the same to be true, right? Where like if you had a client that was to work with an amazing lender versus a not amazing lender, it could make or break the entire transaction, right?
Without question.
How do you position that with your clients when the financing conversation comes up?
As far as the differences between lenders, I mean, one is, I only work with lenders that I trust. And we're really operating, we can't lose track of this. We're operating with a decision that someone's going to have to live with for at least, who knows, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The home purchase, the financing decision making is going to be highly impactful on how their quality of life is, what they're able to do in their personal life, in their financial life, opportunities, threats. And so I like to look at it with that level of gravity. And we want to really, and when we talk about all realtors do the same thing, well, it's like saying, hey, all heart surgeons do the same thing. Like if you're going to go in for a heart surgery, you're going to interview a few, I would hope. And you might not want to go to the guy who's going to give you the lowest, guy or lady that's going to give you the lowest quote, because there might be a reason they're giving you the lowest quote. So you want to interview, you want to understand, and just like your needs are different than my needs, there's a lender out there that can cater to that specific background, because there are lenders that really excel in certain types of buyer profiles, and conversely, lenders that do well in others. And so it's important to match those needs up, I think.
So go back, how were you first introduced to real estate?
Well, I previous to
And what were you doing? Yeah.
Previous to real estate, I was working in nightlife, bar, restaurant industry. I did that for a little over a decade. And for some reason, there was some hubris around me being good at dealing with people. And so I thought, well, real estate, bartending, you're dealing with people. Maybe there's some crossover there. There's no crossover. A little bit in the sense of you have the opportunity to deal with a lot of different personalities, and that's good because you want to be desensitized to that, in my opinion. If you're not used to dealing with a lot of people, it can be, I would imagine, a little bit of a hard transition. So that was one helpful thing, and I know some people may naysay and say, yeah, sure, you can transition between the two, but I really didn't want to carry over any of the skills or bad habits from my previous career into my new one. So there was like a hard stop and then a fresh start for me.
Is it like the stories that a lot of people hear with nightlife? I mean, is it just drugs are rampant? Like are all the people that are working in the restaurant or the bar sleeping with each other? Are all the rumors true?
Well, I mean, perhaps in some capacity. I think that everyone has a different experience. I mean, I worked with, especially working up in Boulder, there's a lot of people in graduate school working in nightlife. But you also have a lot of fun things at your fingertips. And it can be an interesting experience. Yeah. I mean, of course, you're around booze all the time. And you're around, frankly, I mean, if you're someone like myself, I'm a little bit of an introvert, and I also really don't like high volumes of people. It's like you need to desensitize yourself to deal with that sometimes. So, I mean,
isn't that interesting? Because I'm an introvert as well, and there's a lot of introverts that are in our industry. What do you think?
It's
What do you
wild.
think that is, right? Because I'm the same way. Like people are like, "You're an introvert," and I'm like, "Dude, it's not that I hate being around people. I love people, but I don't get energized by being around people. I get energized by being by myself."
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit concerned when you come into real estate and you're brand new and you see the bubbly personalities and you see the agents that really can immediately connect and just are magnetic in a way. And so you wonder, is that a requirement? Is that something and of course I will point out agents in my office all day long that certainly benefit from that type of personality. But there's just like the notion of all realtors are the same. I mean, there's a different realtor for every personality. And
Sure.
so, and most of us are adaptable. Like I get a lot of energy one-on-one or when I'm out showing clients or when I'm doing listing presentations or when I'm really working deeply with clients, but larger groups is perhaps not my preference.
Do some people say a dry, sarcastic sense of humor?
I mean, perhaps, hopefully.
And also, dude, I've noticed you're really good with the way you word things, right? And it's like, I don't know, is that a skill that you've developed? There's a few other people I know that are like that, where I can almost tell that the way they're delivering their thought is something that their brain is thinking through prior to it coming out of their mouth, and it's delivered in a way that is very diplomatic.
Thank you for noticing. I think there's two parts to that, because one is I've been doing video for 8 years. And so I've had the opportunity to watch myself on video and learn. Two is that I believe that what we say has high impact. And so being deliberate, especially with clients, and the way we're phrasing things is really important. Like words, maybe it's kind of trite, but like words are so powerful. And it's something that I work on with some of my teammates is we really work on how are we going to deliver this so it's succinct, easily understood, and there's no room for interpretation.
So is this part of a coaching group?
Well, I have one team member that works with me, and we go back and forth because she gets to hear me talk all the time, and she kind of asks me questions about, why did you say it that way? And then we can go back through and learn from each other.
Dude, that's the stuff that I find fascinating. Like that, because that is a real skill set. Like that takes it, and it's a skill that if you develop it properly, it's like you get better and better at it and faster at it. Was that something you struggled with in the beginning, or were you always pretty good at it?
I don't know if it would be a struggling, but it's a skill that I didn't have. I mean, it would just be more the way that I would digest or perhaps present what I want to say now does take a little bit more thought. It's not just a stream of consciousness. There's a little like nanosecond in there where you kind of analyze what you're going to say and then deliver. And sometimes it leads to a little bit of stuttering. Sometimes it leads to me redoing videos over and over again because I can't get past something. But it's just been part of
good. And that's just a sign
adjustment.
you have a high standard for yourself, right? What actually gets put out there, because words do matter.
Yeah, it's important, and you learn. When you watch yourself on video, which you have the opportunity to do a lot, you learn every time.
Yeah. Has it helped you with your marriage at all?
Well, my wife, she's Latina. English is her second language. She speaks perfect English, and I don't think that I like to use what I've learned in real estate on my wife. It's not really like best practice because we study negotiation. We study how to work with people, how to mirror people, how to work with the type of personality that you have in front of you. And I try and leave that aside when I'm talking to my wife so that she just gets me. And there's not like any strategy to it. It's just...
That's good. Good answer.
Yeah. It's just
good answer. So you were in the bar scene 10 years. We're starting to feel like, hey, maybe I need a change, or this is not going down the path that I want it to go down eventually. So, but was there somebody that introduced you specifically to real estate, or said, hey, Colin, you'd be great at this? Or is it something you would just started to pay attention to and then made introductions on your own?
Yeah, well, I had an old friend who was working with me in the food and beverage industry as well that made the transition. And so he was my early on mentor. And was instrumental in just getting my feet under me. I mean, it was real estate is like drinking out of a fire hose. You're learning, you go to real estate school and there's not much learned really. Maybe some regulatory items. That's about it. They don't even talk about how to fill out a contract. And that's a whole nother conversation.
If you redid the entire curriculum for real estate tests, what would you change about it?
Well, I don't remember the curriculum that well, which
but
lets you know,
yeah,
it wasn't really
same
relevant.
thing with lending, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of regulation, compliance. Like there are departments that just handle that, right? See, if it were me, I think the whole thing should be a sales course.
Sure.
And how to deal with people.
That. Yeah. I think for me, that I would just like to see it be a little bit more of a difficult undertaking. So sure, keep the same curriculum, but add another 3 to 4 layers of it to make it really, so when someone hits the ground, they can write a contract somewhat efficiently. They understand what contingencies are and what they mean and the implication on their clients, and can actually go out and operate in good faith with the general public. Because when I got out of school, I mean, luckily I had a mentor that could help me, but there's no way. I mean, if someone gave me a deal 2 weeks in, I would have had no idea what to do with it.
I always kind of laugh about it because early in my career, it's like I was the technician. I had to do everything, right? I had to take the loan app. I had to pull the credit report. I had to analyze the tax return. So you get really good at that stuff, being in it. But then somewhere along the line, you realize that you want to grow. And it's going to be impossible to grow if you're the one person that's doing it. I had a mentor of mine. He says, "Do you want to be a mortgage man or a businessman?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that." He says, "Well, who do you think makes more money?" I said, "Probably the businessman." He's like, "You want to be the businessman, not the mortgage man. The mortgage man's doing loans. The businessman has people doing the loans for him."
Sure.
And so as my business has evolved, I've also had to peel that back because I think that, I'm making this up, but 2% of all agents run like a massive business, like a corporation, right? The majority of agents are very relational, even if they're helping up to 50 clients a year, which I would say is a lot.
Sure.
It's most of them are still relational. So if you have a lender that's running this like corporation where it's just totally systematized, you lose that influence from the leader. You lose the engagement. They're not involved at the point of sale. The warm and fuzzy relationship kind of goes away. And so as I worked to scale my business, that's something that I noticed. So then I had to look at it and go, well, man, okay, I've developed these systems, which is great, but how do I now reinsert myself in the key points in the process, uphold the integrity of the process, and make sure the client gets me at the most important time in the process, but still allowing me to go grow the business? Is that something that you've come across at all with your business as you've tried to grow it?
Certainly. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have the room to hire a full-time assistant who has changed the way that I do things and allowed me to work on more high impact activities. My business organization is such that I still work. I'm really focused on working with all the referrals that come my way, regardless of what the price point is, relatively what neighborhood. I will work with them if they come to me because my business is 100% referral and I believe in caring for them. But I had to scale up with her to be able to take 5 buyers at the same time, right? So in a way, the systems have been pretty honed, but I just I have to be face to face with my clients because the only way that my business is going to sustain itself is through referral. And I have to earn, 2 referrals for every deal that I sell, or at least a lifetime client. That's the goal. If they send me referrals, all the better.
So now 8 years in industry, tell us kind of what your prospecting looks like. Like what do you have because I would imagine that if you're just sitting in a chair all day long like this, waiting for the phone to ring, You're probably not capturing as much business as you could if you did something to generate business. What's your approach? Because I do know that part of your approach is repeat referral clientele, right? So it's like being really, really good to people and then they refer you, but which is amazing. I just don't like it's not predictable, right?
No.
So like, how do you take that? We were talking before the show about frequency, right? It's not all about effort. It's about what your frequency is and the state that you're operating at. But how do you have a daily routine that creates predictable results and to match it to the unpredictability of the business?
Well, I would wish I could give you a good answer on a daily routine that achieves predictable results, because my business is, there's not like a make 10 calls and get one deal input output type flow that we get, unfortunately. What I do focus a lot on is making sure that my past clients are cared for. I make sure that they know they can introduce me to anyone that they know that needs assistance. And that is, I take calls about very, very random things all the time. I am constantly looking to align with people that are interested in things I'm interested in. So whether it be, I started playing poker, which I'm not really interested in, but I learned how to play poker, and it's with a bunch of gentlemen that are wonderful. And just being around them brings me in a place of feeling abundant, because I'm around a lot of people that are high producing in whatever industry they work in. The conversations are much more high level than anything you're going to get around the office. And it puts you in a different playpen or a different sandbox. That's the analogy I was looking for. So I do that. And really that's a lot of what my efforts are, is past clients, current clients, and being around people that are like-minded and making sure they know what I do. Yeah. Conversion's not easy all the time, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm out to do. Like, I want to earn the business. I don't need to sell myself.
So it's really attraction rather than promotion.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you take a client and showcase your strengths without it sounding arrogant but confident, but still letting them know, like, here's why I'm the best? Like, what does that delivery look like with the client? How are you walking them through, here's what you get with Colin Dart?
Well, I find that the best place to start is curiosity and asking questions, because it's not about me, but it's about what they want and how I can get them there. So I need to understand first who they are, what are they after. Everyone is different, so I do need to change my advocacy depending on what their goals are. And once we can get to that point, that would be like a base understanding of each other, then we can start talking about case studies. Like, here is someone that I worked with in the past, and this is what we did that went really well. Let's talk about it. Does this seem like something that will work? And buyers and sellers are very different. I mean, my seller process is so zipped up. I mean, my firm is known. We're some of the better marketing, some of the best marketing in the city. We have excellent photography. I have stagers that I'm almost always try and use. I have interior designers, all these things that I can just deliver. This is what I do. And if I'm competing, I assure you what I'm doing is more than any other agent. That's, within reason. There's other agents that do similar work, right? But help them understand that, like, the journey, their results, you're very bought into that. That's very important to me, because if I don't give you a great service and a great result, it has nothing to do with money to me. It's the energy.
Of what you said about how it's not about you, it's just about them. You just focus on taking care of the client. That's super refreshing to hear, man. And Honestly, it's been a challenge for me. It's something that we're really focusing on right now with database and making sure we're staying in front of our past clients and current clients. And we have a whole, like, we're calling them 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 5 months, a year after to do a loan review. And, we're expecting there to be a lot of refinances in the next couple of years if there's a rate drop. But how do you set goals? Because and I know you will be honest about this, but how do you set goals when part of your philosophy is I'm just there to take care of the client at the highest level? How do you push the envelope on your business?
Well, like anyone, I have a business plan, right? And there's lead measures that I try and track and make sure that I'm hitting those, and they can run the gamut from, they were open houses. I will not do open houses anymore. I refuse, especially unless it's a client's.
That's a controversial topic.
If it's a client's first weekend on and it's a listing, I'll do it.
Tell us why.
Well, for them, it's exposure. I mean, I sold a house, property.
Why won't you do them?
It's just not, it doesn't work for me, because I'm not there. Open houses sometimes are to benefit our clients, right? But a lot of the times they're to benefit the agent. And the agent's out there getting leads, and it's great. It's great ways to showcase how you talk to clients. It can help you support a neighbor who wants to sell a house, or perhaps a buyer that doesn't have a representation. Cool. It just doesn't seem to be the way that I work well. And it kind of reminds me of bartending. People just come in, say whatever they want, eat your cookies, drink your water, and then leave. It's not my favorite thing.
Yeah, especially for an introvert.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. I've seen it both ways, man.
People crush it.
Works both ways.
Opens. It's good for them. But I guess the tracking is, when you were talking about taking care of the client, and I find a lot of value in that, because in our industry it's not feast or famine anymore for me, but it certainly is still very much a roller coaster. And so if I'm doing the right work, I can go home at night knowing that is going to inform ongoing continuity in my business. Even if I haven't sold a house in 3 weeks, I know that if I'm doing the right thing with my clients every day, day in, day out, I get a lot of return on that. And so that's what keeps me going in kind of thinner times. Tracking is difficult.
How much of the industry do you think is going to stay the same? Like, for me, it's always been belly to belly. It's always been face to face. It's always been making phone calls. It's always been events, right? It very kind of, say, old school way of doing things. But I feel like there's this improvement to that system that has started to happen, which is data, automation, and content. And I think that's where the future is going with this. I don't think the old school way of doing things will ever end. I think it'll always have a place, but it's like you could be the best broker, I could be the best lender on the planet, but if nobody knows who I am, who cares? Like, I'm not going to work with that client anyway. So, how much of your time goes into being the best version of you for your client versus getting your name out there, being omnipresent, marketing, how much time do you spend on that part of it?
I spend a tremendous amount of time marketing. Yeah,
with videos. Tell us about the video process.
We do video, when I was very consistent, I did video every Monday morning on Facebook. I would post it live. I would do snippets of different reels or kind of candid videos throughout the week on Instagram. Every listing would get a video as well. I actually started making neighborhood videos because in the first 6 months of selling real estate, I didn't have a lot to do. And so I would go around and showcase a property or two, talk about some amenities, and probably have a few DORA violations and the way I was presenting things, but we've gotten better since then. Said some things I probably shouldn't have, but we a lot of video, and that gets sent out also so my clients can watch it as a monthly basis. I do my monthly market update on video, and I send that out monthly. So big. I've always been big into video, and it's been tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think the industry's headed? Especially with this lawsuit that happened. I mean, there's a lot of controversy with it, a lot of difference of opinion on it. But where do you, like, if you were to look at this and go, okay, 10 years from now, we're still doing loans, you're still doing real estate.
Sure.
How is it different then?
I have thought a lot about this. We've been saying that there was room for some attrition in our industry for a long time, and it just hasn't happened yet. I could see a little bit thinner agent pool coming up because of the way that things are going to start operating. I can see a lot more accountability between buyer and buyer's agent coming, which is really exciting for both parties, in my opinion. There's going to be some disrupting or disruptors coming down the pipe.
With what? Like technology?
There'll be tech. There's going to be tech always. There's going to be. I mean, we've seen disruptors come in and out of the industry, and even in the brief time I've been doing it, and no one's really knocked off the old belly to belly concept. But I think it's enhanced by tech now, enhanced by marketing. I think that the best way I can put it is the public is getting smarter, and that's a good thing. The public is getting more educated. They understand not only their rights, what you owe to them if you're under contract with them, but also what a good agent should be. They're getting closer and closer to what that really means. And that's where I think the industry has a lot to benefit from. There's more empowered general public is good.
What does your day look like? Like how many hours are you working per day? You made a comment earlier about 7 days a week and, working hard. And I'm glad you said that, man, because there is this belief that having a work-life balance is so important. And there's nuance to that. But I feel like when you're really trying to build something great, I don't know how you have the best work-life balance. It's like, okay, honey, go out and conquer the world, but be home by 5:00. And I don't know that that's realistic if you're really trying to build something spectacular. So, and not that everybody's trying to build something spectacular, but and so that's all good. Like if somebody wants to sell real estate 1 day a week and go snowboarding the other 6 days,
Oh yeah.
right? So be it. But how do you balance that, especially not being married?
Well, I'll start with the last comment. My wife's very understanding. She also works nonstop, and she's been more than accommodating for me. I've worked on every single vacation we've taken. I've had to hike up to the top of dunes in the Sahara Desert in order to get service at night so that I could do deals. That was last year. I don't really even get caught up on work-life balance. I look at it as if I can do the thing that I want to do for myself every day, then I'm happy to give up everything else. And it's not even giving up. It's to your point of creating something big or something worthwhile. It's a value conversation. What's the ends? What are you going towards? And for me, what are we balancing with? As long as I can go to the gym or go on a run, I can work the rest of the time. And that's the way I look at it. I don't always have to because I'm not always that busy.
What would you say, though, to somebody that maybe doesn't have a supportive spouse?
This industry will require it, but it also depends on what you get out of it. Because if it is somewhat flexible schedule and some freedom, that's the beauty. I can go travel for 2 weeks out of the month and I still work the whole time, but I can be in Thailand, I can be in Vietnam, I can be in Morocco. And yes, it's not boots on the ground, but the flexibility is there, and there's a financial upside. If you're closing deals in the middle of the desert, it's a beautiful thing.
How often do you travel back to Thailand?
Every year.
Yeah. Once a year?
I try to. Yeah, it'll be a sad year if I miss it.
So was your brother, remind me where you were born, or you
Well,
grew up
I'm from
in
Boulder. Yeah.
Boulder, but didn't you spend time in South America or something?
I, I,
Or your dad lived
I have, well,
somewhere?
I have, so I'm from Boulder, grew up in Boulder, never left Colorado. There we go. I lived in Mexico for a while. My wife's Colombian. Her brother lives in Thailand. I have family in Belize. I have my cousin actually married a Colombian as well. He's a little bit older than me. So maybe that was like precedence for what I got into. But yeah, I like to I like to travel. That's one of my hobbies.
Was that one of the reasons why you got into real estate, is knowing that you could work and then travel?
I think it's been one of the nice side effects of real estate and it's a learning process right now, because it is truly, you have to find a time of the year where you think you're not going to be kind of going crazy. And we have that old saying in real estate, you schedule a vacation and you're going to get 5 new clients. So you got to be ready for that. Honestly, that's kind of how it plays out. And I have systems to deal with it. My assistant knows how to handle pretty much everything. I do the high level negotiations, and any of those kinds of advocacy conversations come through me, and the rest, she runs with it when I'm out. So it's been good thus far.
How long now have you been at the company that you're at?
Been with Mile High Modern for 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like it there.
It's great.
Yeah. Good. I wanted to ask you, when it comes to like lender relationships, right? Like, what is it? So for lenders listening to this, where they're like, man, I'd love to be able to build a relationship with a Colin Dart. Agents get flooded with lender calls all the time, right? Just like we get flooded with calls from insurance people and title people. How do you decide when to let somebody in? Is it just like an intuitive feeling, or do you feel like you've gotten to a point in your business where you have your people and that's it? And unless somebody completely destroys the relationship with you, you don't have any interest in finding somebody new.
I think it's a little bit of the latter, but it would be closed-minded of me to say that I'm not always looking for something that aligns with my business more. The lenders, I mean, frankly, I have so much respect for lenders, because you have to prospect to agents. What a nightmare that would be, because agents are probably really tough to prospect to.
Well, what's funny is I don't think there's one agent that I work with now. Not one. I love it when the agent's like, Darik, I've got my lender. And it's like, of course you do. Every agent I work with had their lender. And then somewhere along the line, I became their lender.
Yeah.
Right? Or I didn't, but I feel like we're in an industry where and I don't think it's intentional, but there's just not a ton of loyalty. What I've found with agents and lenders. I think that a lot of agents think that there's always a lender that's got some kind of niche thing that if they've got that niche thing in their back pocket, they're going to be able to be a better agent for their client. But the reality is most of it is just really, really good marketing and good salesmanship, right? How the loan officer or the lender can position themselves to make the agent believe that they've got something so unique that you need them in your back pocket.
I could see that. I mean, to try and make it very straightforward, I think the most important part about that relationship is truly understanding each other's lanes and having a lender where, if you send them a client and their deal is complicated and they have a house to sell and they have fill in the blank other financial challenges that we need to work through, they come back to me and the options are put out on a silver platter saying, here are the things that we can do. Here are the ways that we can work with your client. Which one works best? That's a dream.
Do you mean like the lender actually shows you and the client the same spreadsheet of loan options? Is that what you're talking about?
It's more And
Or like, hey, here's what would happen if you sold this house before you bought, kept the house and, pull a HELOC, or kept the house and did a bridge loan, or turned it into a rental. Is that what you're
exactly
referring to?
that.
Okay.
Yeah. If they come to me, because I'm frankly, I do have a depth of experience there, but a good lender has more than I do. And they can look at the entire playbook and give me options. And then we can talk and get together as a team, client, agent, lender, and really put pen to paper and figure out what's best for them.
Do you find that most lenders you work with are quoting rates right out of the gate with borrowers, or are they trying to not dance around it, but like, you can't lock your rate until you're under contract, unless you do like a lock and shop product, which is then usually costing money, and the lender is either telling the client it costs money, or they're saying it doesn't cost money, and they're really covering the cost of it to make it appear like it doesn't cost any money. But so there's nuances, right? But for the most part, somebody's not locking their rate until they go under contract. I've always felt, and I tell clients this, like, shop around. Talk to as many lenders as you want. I think it's a good idea. You do need to know who's a pro, who's not, who's in alignment with what you're looking to do short term and long term.
Exactly.
But I'm going to ask you for your commitment before you ever make an offer. And it gives me the ability, because I don't have a contract like you do as an agent. That gives me the ability to see if there's an objection from that client up front, right? Where they're like, well, yeah, but we really want to wait until we know what the rates are. Okay, so if you're shopping to pick your lender based on who is showing you the best rate now, and we don't know if you're writing an offer tomorrow or 2 months from now, it's really an impossible situation there, because hopefully you're talking to lenders that are being honest and transparent with where the market's at. But if you're not, now all of a sudden I'm competing against somebody that is giving you information that's not accurate, but it looks better, so you're going to go with them as a client, only to find out later that that's potentially totally different. Now, if you're referring them, then hopefully you trust them, right? So you know that your lenders aren't going to do that. But I like asking the borrower for the commitment before they go and write the offer, and just air it out on the table. Like, hey, if you have concerns about that, let's talk about it now.
I think that's wise. I mean, I don't know, I'm not intimately as part of that process with my clients when they do shop around. I love.
Would that bother you though? Like if your lender did that, ask for their commitment before
they write? If they've made their decision, then no. Yeah, I mean, it's
not like in a pushy way, but just like, hey, because as you know, a good lender is gonna, it's nights and weekends, it's 24/7, it's working up a bunch of different payment scenarios on a Saturday night, potentially. Sure. It's calling listing agents, being an advocate for them. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just a great rate. So I usually try to educate the client and just say, hey, here's what you're going to find. Go do your shopping, but I will put money on it that what you bring back, if everybody's being honest and transparent, everyone's going to probably be within about 0.25% in rate, 0.375. I mean, like you're never going to have somebody quote 7% and somebody else is at 5.
Correct.
It's impossible. It's not, so if you're looking for this ridiculous difference with the one needle in a haystack, you're not going to find it. Same thing with closing costs. If everybody's being honest and transparent with closing costs, they're going to have identical to the penny closing costs, with the exception of 2 fees, a processing fee and an underwriting fee, usually, unless it's maybe a broker charging points in origination. But 99% of it is third-party fees, prepaid items like taxes and insurance. So then you get down to it and say, okay, if every lender that they're researching is quoting processing and underwriting fee, I guarantee you those fees, 10 different lenders side by side are going to be within $500 of each other. So I think ultimately the decision the client's making, they think it's because of rate and closing costs. But the truth is that the rate and closing costs are going to be so similar. And listen, like if you had a client that you sent to me and they're like, Darik, I'm getting this quote from ABC Lending down the street and they're 0.25% better, I'm just going to do a pricing exception and match it because it's your client.
Sure.
Right? So then we're the same. So I always think it's educating the client on that. And then, hey, but here's what else an amazing lender is going to do. So really the question you want to be asking, whether you pick me or somebody else, is what else are you doing for me? Like, are you looking at my long and short-term goals? Are you having conversations with me about building wealth? Are you talking about, do you want to build an investment portfolio? Like, let's look at your financial situation so we can structure it in a way that's most advantageous to you financially. Like, let's look at everything outside of this transaction in addition to this transaction, if that's what you want. Some people don't. And then I say, maybe you're not my client, right? Because some people are just, the only thing they care about is if the other lender is going to save them $5 on a closing costs, they're going to go with the other lender.
And your end of the transaction's a little bit different than mine, right? Because, and there's some similarities. I like that you say, hey, feel free to go out and shop. I do the same with listings. Go ahead. Let me have the last word, though. Mm-hmm. Let me come in and we'll talk about what they presented. We'll revisit what I have to offer, and let's see if we're in alignment. Because if I look at, I'm putting losing clients in a quotation, those likely aren't people I should be working with anyway.
For sure.
And I know that the way we're measured is a little bit different because people on paper think that that's a really easy metric to look at. And what, to your point, it is just a part of the holistic approach of a lender. Lenders that are answering the phones on the weekends, lenders that are calling listing agents and really advocating like the right way, not just, hey, I have a great buyer and they're really interested. Understanding what listing agents are looking for, and then coming back to, because often lenders get more information than I do as a buyer's agent.
A good lender should.
Yeah, they
right?
get more information, because if we're working together and I'm asking the realtor questions and they're asking the lender questions, then we can come back, and if we need to revisit how we structure our offer, I mean, you're going to get the best information.
Hey guys, this is why it's so critical, in my opinion, to have a great, like, you have to build the trust and relationship with the realtor that you're working with and have a mutual understanding. Because you said a few minutes ago, like, it's important that you have the lender and the agent stay in their lane. But there are times where a great lender might help you win the deal because they're able to extract information that otherwise isn't getting extracted for whatever reason.
Well, without question, they're not going to talk to me as the realtor because I'm a competing party. You're deemed as a little less threatening, so you can get more info.
Yeah, I love it.
So yeah, it's I mean, a good lender is worth their weight in gold, without question.
So, dude, where do you see your business going? Like, you said you have a business plan, and you've like, what do you want your business to look like over the next half a decade?
A great question.
Like, what's your team look like?
Yeah.
Do you have a team? Are you living here? Are you out of the country? What's your...
Oh, that's an exciting, I mean, if you could
Kids
smile on
and
my
kids?
face. The business is in a crossroads because I have been working in a very, very diverse price point this year. And it's brought up some really exciting things and some considerations on where I want to be. And I've constantly anchored into the desire to work with referrals. That's never going to go anywhere. So I'm going to continue with anybody that gets sent my way is going to be taken care of. I'm building my business to where I have support on the buyer agent / executive assistant end so that I can be in 2 or 3 places at once. I do live in Boulder. I do a lot of business in Denver. I would like to do more business in Boulder. I've done a couple of deals. I mean, the volume ends up sometimes shaking out in a similar way because the average sold price in the city of Boulder is $1.7 million, plus or minus $100K. Boulder is somewhere I feel very passionately about. I run those streets. I know those houses like no one else. And I don't mean that literally. There's other agents that are just as good. There are amazing agents up there, but I look at them in a different way. You know, I'm running behind them on a trail. I'm walking in front of them. You know, it's the feel that I have is a different perspective that I can give. So where we're going is building out in Boulder I have been coached to try and let go of Denver. I have gone against that, and I'm doubling down in Denver.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So double down in Denver because I love Denver. And if it means I have to get a pied a terre so that I can crash in Cherry Creek 2 nights a week, then so be it. I don't mind driving, so I'll drive home usually, but I have an event till 10 o'clock at tonight, so it would have been nice to stay down in Denver. Doubling down in Denver, quadrupling down in Boulder. Hopefully, you alluded to spending time in other countries. I would like to spend some longer periods of time. I do have a cat I think care dearly about. So that's what makes it that's what makes it hard is I still need like a caretaker for my house and my cat, if I leave for more than about 2 weeks.
What kind of cat do you have?
Well, I'm not like a fancy cat guy. He's striped.
Okay, so just
from
like
a barn.
Yeah.
But he's an angel. And that's my version. It's not to substitute for a child, but that's my child.
Marketing have the cat on it? Like
he always gets folded into the Christmas card, and then some Instagram stuff. The cat makes appearances. I mean, people know. Like I have clients that know his name, Little Dandy. So that's spending time abroad, and especially acquiring real estate abroad has been very interesting to me.
Where? What country?
I look in Mexico, in Merida, pretty frequently. There's some interesting projects down there. The architecture is lovely. And then I look in Thailand a lot.
And Sayulita?
I look in Thailand.
But Sayulita,
I've not looked at, no.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
We almost bought a place there a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And it's an amazing little kind of, it's almost like a decompressed Boulder surf town. It's a really cool, like it's become more popular. So there's definitely more Americans there, but it's, you feel a little safer, but it's not like but it's still Mexico. You know what I mean? Like you don't feel like you're in like a whitewashed, just total expat community. So I don't know, maybe check it out.
It's north of Puerto Vallarta, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just north of Puerto Vallarta, about 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you ever go, let me know, dude. I'll hook you up with all the right places.
I love Mexico. It's a magical place. It's it's the beauty of our work. I could spend post Christmas all the way to early February somewhere else.
It's a good time to take off. I always say collectively the industry takes a pause in July because of the 4th and around the holidays. Those are like always, for me, seems like the best 2 times to travel. Oh, this July, dude, we have a monster July that we're closing, which is
good for
you. Is exciting. And we picked up some builder accounts, which is really cool. But for people that want to be able to find you, how can they find you?
Look up my name,
Instagram
Colin Dart.
Or where you at?
Easy. Instagram, colindart.co. Google COLINDART.co.
Cool.
If you Google Colin Dart, I will be the first that comes up, and there'll be plenty of options to get a hold of me. I encourage, I like connecting with people, so reach out if this was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can tell you guys, like Colin's the best of the best. If you're thinking about Boulder or Denver, I guess he's doubling down in Denver.
I do both.
Boulder, Denver, he's worth reaching out to. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Right. Cool. Have a great rest of your day, dude.
Thanks, Darik.
What's the event?
I'm on the board of a B'nai B'rith, which is a Jewish fraternal organization.
Okay.
I am not Jewish. But
Okay.
I have many Jewish friends, and I've been fortunate enough to join them, and it's great.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll have fun at the event.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on,
Turn
brother.
that loss to a check. Every time that I see a limit, I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck. Nah.